Well, that's a great way to segue into the gun debate, and I mean, and what a tough issue, and tough to talk about, but we're going to talk about it. That's what we do. So, even the protesters down in Florida, the passionate people that want to change the gun laws, that's even spread out here for some young folks locally going to the school board here in Chico and going in front of the Butte County School Board, asking them to look at some ways to make students safer. How do you feel right now about things, and do you feel like this is a time that's going to start moving the needle?
And I will tell you, just before I get to that, is on the front page of my local paper up in Quincy, gun safety and school safety was on the front page. And just yesterday, a group of students from our high school marched through town. They left class and marched through town with signs saying that, they want to push for gun control. That's a really interesting story coming out of these small mountain towns that are tend to be very pro-gun, or at least that's the concept that we have. So you do have students that are willing to stand up and willing to march through town with signs, waving to drivers and saying, hey, we want you to pay attention to us and to our safety. And we've got front page news coverage on that in our local papers. And that's happening across our region in all of our small towns. Those discussions are now starting. And that's where I get to the idea of, these kids in Florida have done something to push a conversation into the mainstream in such a way that we have a chance to get over a tipping point where talking about guns and dealing with this issue is something that is going to be expected and not a lefty fantasy. It's going to become part of our regular conversation, and that we have to actually really work toward a solution together. And I think it's going to mean, a whole bunch of different things. We sometimes get into this idea of, single action bias, that one action is going to solve all the problems. Now, we know that semi-automatic weapons are a big part of the problem here, and that we have to really tackle the semi-automatic weapon availability and the fact that we've got all of these semi-automatics out there in the world that don't serve a purpose in terms of protection or in terms of sport or in terms of hunting. And so that's something that we need to put on the table and work on. But we do also have to work on a lot of the other systems that need to support sensible management of guns and just our world of living in a place where the Second Amendment exists. And that means we have to really do a lot more to support the background check system. So that's another thing that Trump is cutting the budget on. You always say, turn off the volume on what he's saying and turn up the volume on what he's actually doing to really understand what's going on. That system desperately needs resources to work better because it relies on this web of all the states and all of these different federal agencies putting in data and getting data back out of that system. It's complicated, and it needs to work so much better if we want to have any faith in it whatsoever.